Hey everybody, it's Jackie with Jackie's Recent Things, and today I'm going to show you how to make ornament balls. Now I've done a lot of the prep work, so this tutorial will go pretty fast for y'all, but I'll go slow enough as I put each piece on so that you see what I'm doing. The first thing you're going to need is a fat quarter of fabric. Now how you lay your fat quarter is very important. You want to lay your fat quarter with the salvage edge down this way. You want to make sure when you pull on your fabric, it stretches. It has to stretch, otherwise the wrinkles do not come out of the fabric. Then what I do is I fold it in half first, like so. And then I fold it in thirds, like so. And I iron the fabric so that it will stay nice and flat while I'm cutting my pieces out. This is the template that I use. You can make your own because you can purchase the plastic material, or you can just pin the a paper one to the fabric. But what I do is I just take my template down, and I just take an ink pen and I trace around my template. Like so, and I do it 3 times. Up the fat quarter. And then what I do to cut it out is I take a pin, hold my fabric together, and I pin right here in the center to make sure my fabric's not going to move while I'm cutting. And then I just cut these apart to make the pieces smaller, easier to cut. And I'm just going to cut one to show you, and then I'm going to move on. But what you're going to want to do is you want to cut on the inside of your pen mark. Don't cut on it, cut toward the inside, because you don't want your pen mark to be there when you're done. And it's just like that. So now that we have our pieces, we're ready to start putting them on the styrofoam ball. This is parchment paper, but this is what I had at the shop. I'm telling you, wax paper works the best. But if you just trying this, you can get the parchment paper from the Dollar Tree if you have wax paper laying around, but wax paper does work the best. So I'm going to lay my wax paper out. We're going to call it wax paper because that's really what it should be. And normally when I'm going across the balls, but I'm going to lay these out as I need them to put on the balls, but I would lay out 6 of the same color. But I need one of these to show you, one of these, one of these, and then 3 of these. I wouldn't go any more because this glue does dry quick. And I make sure that all my pieces are turned upside down because once I get the gloves on, it's easier to grab them. These are the gloves that I use. I get them at Walmart. They're vinyl latex gloves. The reason that I like these best is, number one, the ones that you get over in the automotives and the paint area, they've got a powder in them, and that powder slides around and the glove doesn't stay on your hand very well. So I like these the best. Now the glue does dry really, really fast, but it also will get up underneath your nails and everything. So it's kind of why you need to wear the gloves. For just trying this, you know, you don't really need the gloves. Just keep a moist towel close by to get the glue off of your fingers. This is the glue we're using. It's called Elmer's Craft Bond Quick Dry. Sorry, y'all, forgot my paintbrush. And then what I have here is just a plain 1-inch paintbrush. I can't remember where I got them from, but I had several of them. So I might have probably got them from Lowe's. But this is Elmer's Craft Bond Quick Dry Glue. You can only get it at Walmart. This stuff is not readily available. Believe me, I have found out the hard way. I have to literally, you can't even get it from Walmart.com. I have to order it in bulk ahead of time. So let's get started. So what I do is I put a little amount of glue on each strip. I tried putting it in a cup and dipping my brush. It didn't work as well. I actually ended up wasting more glue than doing it like this. And then you're just going to paint your coat of glue down. Make sure you get all of the fabric, edge, everything. It is very important that you paint the whole piece of fabric. I tried to do more pieces at one time, and by the time I got to put the next piece on, my fabric was dried out. So it wasn't such a good idea. Okay, so you want to put your first piece of fabric on. So you're going to grab your styrofoam ball, and you want to make sure that you do this as straight as possible. So this is where it kind of gets a little bit tricky. And you have to stretch the fabric to smooth it out. So what I do is I grab the tip down here with my thumb, and I aim it, and I stretch, and I pull it straight around the ball. I take both my thumb and my finger, and I hold my tips, and then I take my hand and smooth the fabric down, and I make sure that I get all the little bumps out. And that's your first piece. Now you have to wait till this first piece dries. And actually you have to wait till each piece dries, because if you don't, when you go to put on your next piece, this slides around and moves, and you're having to fix it. So you don't want to do that. So I'm going to set this one to the side and show you how your next piece goes on. What I do is I make sure that this is turned back toward me. I'm going to take my next piece and I hang it above and I put it at an angle. I match my corners up. See how I'm matching my corners up? I'd say I'm overlapping it and putting down about ½ an inch. I take my thumb and I push it on that, and then I'm going to wrap it around the ball and turn the ball toward me, and I'm going to make sure I line my fabric edges up like so. So basically it'll look like it's straight around. See how it looks like it's straight around when you put your piece on? And I'm going to check here, because this is really important, to make sure that I didn't gap too much. So if you want to double check, just grab one of your dry pieces like so and go like that to double check and make sure that you don't have too much of a gap. If you don't have too much of a gap, take your hand and lay your fabric down, smooth it out just like you did the first piece. Now once again, you're going to have to wait for this one to dry before you can put your next piece on. So we'll set that aside, pretend it's dry like magic, and we'll go on to the third one. So the third one, once again, I'm going to line it up here in the corner. So I'm going to take my tip right there to the corner, and I'm going to go straight across the ball. We're kind of dividing the ball, and some of this is dried off because I'm talking, so I'm probably going to have to put some more glue on here. But once again, got to make sure that the edges line up so it'll look like it's straight across this way. Check your gaps. Like I said, if you're questioning, just take a dry piece and make sure it's going to fit, and then lay your pieces down. And it did dry up a little bit, so I'm just going to take my paintbrush and I'm going to go right underneath it and push it down. And then there's your 3 pieces. I'm going to put a little bit more glue on these. It's starting to dry up, y'all. That's okay. Let's moisten this back up. Okay, so now we're going to go, and we're down to the last 3 pieces. So when I start out, sometimes it doesn't overlap perfect, whatever. But right here on the ball is where 2 pieces have come together. I'm going to take my tip and I'm going to come slightly over where the 2 pieces go together, and I'm going to hold that down, and I'm going to go straight across my ball, and I'm going to go straight across to the other side and do the hold like I did with the first piece. I'm going to check and make sure that it's covering on both sides, and then I'm going to lay it down. We're going to set that to the side, always having to wait for it to dry, and then we're going to go put our second piece on. Once again, like I did with the first piece, I'm going to make sure that this piece is facing me. I'm going to overlap, and what I'm going to do is I'm aiming to go straight across through here. So I'm going to overlap my fabric till it lines up with that. See how it's lining up? And it's straight here. So I'm going to hold my thumb there, and I'm still stretching my fabric, And I'm going to rotate my ball over, and I'm going to make sure that my fabric is straight. See how that's a straight line there? And I'm going to smooth it out again. Like so. Now sometimes when you stretch the fabric, it will kind of like stretch back and these will pop up. You just glue them back down. It's not a big deal. I always check mine as I'm going to make sure they're staying down. Last piece. So what you have here is I'm going to go, I always make sure that one of them is facing me. It's just easiest if one of them's facing me, because I can grab this with my thumb and turn the ball toward me to where I can see it. It's a turn toward me so I can see it. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to lay this across, make sure all my lines are lining up, because that's very important when you go to put trim on around the ball, that all your lines are lining up. So I'm going to pull that across there, turn the ball toward me, and once again I'm going to line it all up. Double check, make sure it's covering the styrofoam, and then lay it down. And it's all nice and smoothed out. So I'm going to double check these and make sure these are laying down. I'm going to finish these up in a little bit, so I'm just going to set this to the side while I show you how to put trim on. So what I do with the trim is I'm going to cut 3 of these, just a little over 12 inches. I cut them about 12.5 inches. I take my hot glue gun, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little tack glue right there, and that's just so I can start. And I'm going to put it right up against the edge. And the reason I'm putting it, I'll show you why I'm putting it right up against the edge. So now what I'm going to do is right down the edge, I'm going to lay my bead of glue. This is not, I recommend using a mini glue gun because the glue doesn't shoot out as much. Mine's at the house. So I go about halfway down the ball. Then I pull my trim down. Smooth it out. And I'm doing this as thin as possible because you don't want the hot glue seeping out. But that's the reason I'm only going like halfway at a time, because I'm doing such a thin line and my glue gun's on low temp. It'll cool down pretty quick. So I want mine to, my line to perfectly die out at this seam. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this. And that's going to be my first piece. Now my next piece, I'm going to start it right here once again, and you'll understand why when I go to put the last piece on. So once again, I'm going to put it right there, my beginning right there at the edge. Lay my bead of glue down. The thinner that you do this, the better it will be for you. Because then you're not having to clean up hot glue snot balls. Now the best mini glue gun I have found to date, and everybody agrees that has actually used mine, went out and bought their own, is the Gorilla Glue mini glue gun. It lays just a really nice small bead. So once again, I want it to end exactly where I started. Now I tried to do this as a one continuous piece, and it ended up being too bulky. So now I have both my seams here. So now what I'm going to do is take my last piece, and I'm going to put it directly in the middle of the two seams. And what's going to happen is I come around, I'm going to cover that seam up and that seam up, so I only have one seam showing. And there you have it. There's the trim for your ornament ball. I hope y'all enjoyed this. The template for this will be in the files section of the group. I made the template directly out of this flower. So all you have to do is cut around it and you're ready to go. I hope y'all enjoyed this. Thank y'all so much for joining me. Bye y'all.